الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. Inshallah, today we'll go through Juz 12, and this goes from Hud to Surah to Yusuf. Now, the first ayah I picked this ayah in Surah Hud. وما من دابة في الأرض إلا على الله رزقها ويعلم مستقرها ومستودعها كل في كتاب مبين. There is not a creature that moves on the earth, and we are one of these creatures who move the earth, but on Allah is its provision, and He knows where it lives and where is final resting place. It is all in a clear book. You know, this actually verse is a foundational verse, because we always say there is two things only Allah has control of them: your rizq and your life, how long you are going to live, the duration. So it really, this is a divine system. And sometimes we think a rizq is whatever you earn. No, the rizq is whatever you use in yourself. You know, the earning can be you are a means for delivering rizq to somebody else. Like you can have, $1 million, but if you look, to your all your life, you only spend 100,000 in your food, in your shelter, and so on. That's then your rizq. Now, where is the other remaining? Is whoever is going to inherit it. If you don't give it to them, they will get it themselves. And that's why sometimes people, wants to accumulate wealth for their kids. Well, you keep accumulating for your kids. If you don't give it, if you don't you spend it and build your chest in paradise for it in heaven for yourself, then the kids will earn the rizq too, because the verse is very clear. So it actually relieves you from that pressure that I'm going to be poor, I'm going to be hungry. Your rizq is written. And Allah subhanahu say, it is in a clear book. It's written already, in this regard. So that liberates everybody from worrying about even the future of their kids, although we worry by nature. But the trouble with it sometimes when you have people who their kids already grown up and working and so on, and they're still concerned about, let me leave them, basically fortune. Well, take the fortune itself and build yourself a palace in paradise or two, So that verse, and also it also says something. You don't fight for the rizq. You don't transgress against people to earn something, because at the end of the day, you will get punished for it. And if it's your rizq, will come halal. Either Allah subhanahu will deliver it to you halal, or you take it by haram means. Either by, lawful means or lawful means. You take the same risk, but if you don't take it with unlawful means, Allah will ensure that you get it with a lawful means. So now you come and say, do we trust this verse? Because sometimes the issue for us that we read what Allah subhanahu says, but do we act upon it with a true belief? That is the part which is important as you read some in the Quran. And that is the issue. You find out many people actually, they talk about it, but when you look to their behavior, you said, is this a behavior for somebody who think really the rizq in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that is really, that's a very major part. That's why claiming something and acting upon it is a completely two different things, So the second one I picked, is a few verses in the Quran that talks about the creation of the universe. This is not verses that cannot be interpreted by me or, anybody who religious scholar or business study in any school. This requires a person who is very advanced in astrophysics to really understand this. This is the ayat that used to develop the civilization of a nation. Allah gave us hint in it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ فِي 6 أَيَّامٍ. Okay, Allah created the heaven and the earth in 6 days. وكان عرشه على الماء ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. And then his throne was in water. Then directly you come and say, where is water comes in the when we look to the creation of the universe? Did water existed first or water came later? Because water is important issue because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. Everything was created from water in that regard. But also we have another verse that talk about that in, في سورة الأنبياء. أولم يرى الذين كفروا أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما. That the heavens and the earth was joined together and then we are ripped them apart. And this is what people come about, basically the concept of the Big Bang. Use this verse to understand the Big Bang. So you have an issue, you have the water, you have the that was together and this broke apart. And then you have another ayah في سورة فصلت and talk about ثم استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned it to the heavens and it was a smoke. And said to it and the earth, come into being willingly, unwilling, and said will come willing. So there is another phase of creation, which is a smoke. Then we have now this ayah that talk about the water in the beginning, talk about things to join together and get ripped, then talk about the smoke, Then if somebody have to look at these things and said, how can I stitch all of this together to come, how is the creation was really done? What is the sequence of creation? Now, now in doing this, you will develop great mathematical modeling, technology, measurement, and so on. And this is the nation who advance by all looking to the heavens and look into the sky, basically, and study how the universe. We keep looking and so embraced by it. So that is this verses to me is interested because it talk about the cosmic and the creation. Why Allah put it in? Is any of these things, do you think, will increase your belief? It doesn't increase your belief. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens and the earth. We accept this. End. That's it. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to bring the water element in it? Why have to bring the smoke? Why have to bring the combination of them and the splitting apart? Because this is knowledge. This is technology. If you are going to be advanced nation, you have to develop this. And this is why you look to all of the mathematical model and the satellites and so on came from what? From studying some, this knowledge, but the trouble with it, they study it for the benefit, but why Allah gave it to us unless we are taking and studying it and advance in it? That's why a young person wants to study astrophysics, it's Quran. He's studying Quran. By him and trying to interpret these verses and several others. Because there is no way anybody I can explain to you or anybody can explain this truly to you unless he have advanced knowledge in astrophysics and has a lot of studies associated with it. And to drive him to develop another one that I talked about it before. Even the creation, how the creation started? With the verses say that Sama'ul Ard was together and then Allah, ripped them apart. This is what become, basically the Big Bang. They come and say there was a singularity. There is something, there is very small, and that small has basically infinite, material density in it because all of the universe came from it and they split and they expanded. Okay, and that's what singularity means. It's almost infinite. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us also in another ayah of Surah Al-Anbiya also, يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب كما بدأنا أول خلق نعيده. Allah subhanahu and remember the day when Allah shall roll the heavens like a scroll rolled up for books as we began the first creation and we shall reproduce it. Now we said the reversible cycle, here, but the point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about that in the beginning, and when this thing will collapse again, it will collapse like rolling a scroll for a book. Could that means that was the beginning? Is the beginning is a point, or the beginning is a tight scroll? Now you need to develop a mathematical model to take this approach and see, can you predict what's happening in the universe, how it grow, and even multiverse and so on. But all of these verses, it is just to highlight that if you have a kid who's good in mathematics and wants to study this, encourage him that these things is a religious studies. It's not just, abstract studies or or as people say, secular studies. There's nothing secular. All of this, anything related to study of the creation is a religious study. The other verse which I picked, this verse, and this verse, there's so many verses similar, because all other prophets and messenger, Allah subhanahu provided them with miracles for people, to convince people that they actually messenger from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in general, all of them, their miracle was a physical miracle, something that people see, split the sea, raise people from the dead, all of that. But those people who were there saw it and they can believe it. But people who were not there, how they are going to convince them? They can say, oh, it's a fable, it's a story, we're not going to convince. But now when it came to the Prophet ﷺ, his miracle is the Quran. Yes, he had physical miracle, but we never emphasized them because that wasn't the proof. The proof was the Quran. And the Quran is, Allah preserved it to be eternal until the end of time. And therefore, his miracle has to be proven by every nation, every generation from his time until the future. So Allah subhanahu introduced a concept which is very unique. Okay, you tell me this is a book of Allah. How I can prove it's a book of Allah or not? Allah said this is what we call it a falsification test. Falsification test, they said, okay, I want to give you a test to do. In that test, you can prove it is false. So here is the verse. أَمْ يَقُولُونَ افْتَرَى. If they say, you have invented it, say, فَأْتُوا بِعَشَرِ سُوَرٍ مِثْلِ. Okay, you have the Quran in front of you, bring in 10 surahs like it, produce it. مفتريات, invent them you too. وَادْعُوا مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And invite everybody. I'm not going to challenge you as an individual. I challenge you, everybody you want to invite to help you, let them come to produce 10 do it. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا, when they do not answer because they cannot, that didn't mean they didn't try, but they could not do it. Then فَاعْلَمُوا أنما أنزل بعلم الله وأن لا إله إلا هو فهو هل أنتم مسلمون. They know that it was sent by the knowledge from Allah. Approved it. Now, if you look at the Quran, you find out there is actually this challenge has repeated several times, but each time got reduced. The beginning, Allah subhanahu bring it in surah. When they couldn't do it, he said, okay, bring one surah. They couldn't do this. Bring one surah like it, not even exactly, but like it's the similarities. And people will say, yeah, you can bring it close enough. And that was the challenge. So that is what they call it, and if you want to prove something, then you have to do it. Now, in 1934, it's interesting, this concept of proof the falsification, proof the authenticity of something by providing the test to prove it is false. See, that was done what, over 1400 years from the Quran introduced it. In 1934, there is a philosopher, a science, and in general in the past, all scientists was philosopher, and his name is Karl Popper. Karl Popper has wrote this article, is very famous article called "The Logic of Scientific Discovery." And what he said, he have a theory. He said, if you come to us with any theory, then you must have provide a test for it to prove its falsifiability, that it's false. So, and this is what, when having the example with this came was Einstein. When Einstein came with his general relativity theory, there's all, it's imagination. He said, well, how can we prove it is false? Then he provided them with a test to do it. And the test was the bending of a starlight. during the eclipse. He said, if you do it, if it didn't bend, that means our theory is wrong. If it is bent, that shows it's right. And they have done the test later and they found it is true. And that's how they accepted the general relativity theory as an authentic, theory. But that concept 14 centuries ago, Allah subhanahu introduced. You make a claim, give me a way to test it that it's false first. And that's Allah subhanahu in the dishes also talk about Sayyidina Nuh. And here it's interesting. We always think that revelation is a revelation, that Allah revealed his message like a book. But here Allah subhanahu talk about Allah revealed to him technology. Allah subhanahu say, وَاصْنَعِ الْفُلْكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا وَوَحْيِنَا. Build this ark or build the ship under our watchful eye and with our revelation. You don't know how to build a ship. I'm going to reveal to you how to build a ship. So that directly, this verse tells us that revelation can convey and inspire technical knowledge. Not necessarily that we consider, because frankly, I think the whole issue about there is a secular and there is religious, it's a little bit misnomer. Everything related to creation is a religious, knowledge. Has nothing to do secular. Study physics is religious. Studying biology is religious. Medicine, everything is mathematics and so on. So here is Allah subhanahu says, I am part of my revelation. I revealed to him how to build the ship. And that tell you directly, if you come as serious study in certain subject, Allah subhanahu can reveal to you a technology or a piece of science or a theory. And you said, you look sometimes, I said, well, how in the world did this guy thought about this? Well, he didn't think about it. It was revealed to him. As long as and it doesn't have to be revealed to a Muslim. Revealed to somebody who seeks something, as long as it's beneficial to mankind. So here, Allah subhanahu revealed to Sayyidina Nuh building the ship. But there is another ayah that also a little bit interesting. Also in the same juz, the time in which Allah designate now, everybody now is going to come and embark the ship. There must be a sign. This people is spread, they are not sitting around and then when we're building the ship, particularly there's animal will come and there's people will come and so on. Allah subhanahu give this sign, حتى إذا جاء أمرنا, and when our command come now, we are going to leave. وفار التنور, فار التنور, that the furnace boiled over. Tanur is a furnace or an oven. Wafar, when you put water and boil it and it go over, that's what it is. Then قل نحمل فيها من كل زوجين اثنين وأهلك إلا ما سبق عليه القول ومن آمن ومن عمل قليل. Anyway, at that time, this will be the sign that he will have to carry now from every pair of species and the people who are believer and so on. But do you focus in this وفار التنور? What is this sign? And you look, people speculate. That's why when you look book at tafsir, people speculate on it. But you can also speculate because the term is there, and it's a technical term. People say it could be a volcano. Now it comes in. How you drive the ship. Could Allah taught him how to build the steam engine? And the steam engine, what happened when it's a start? It is, but nuclear would not have a steam in it. Well, but the question is, frankly, if you look at these two issues, one, that the Quran in this case talk about something so important about ships. That means if Muslims really have to, because ships is essential, all of the communication, all of the business is done by what? By planes. All of the product we get by ships. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He taught him how to build the ship. So you are Muslims, you're supposed to have ship, industry. Allah tell you also that you can have a steam to drive it. You build the steam engine and advance and build whatever other system you can do. But that is the means by which, basically to take advantage of Allah Quran to develop technology that serve all humanity and serve you to also too. Because people, when the Muslim get occupied, like any countries like, Spain or Portugal and so on, how they advance, or even, Holland, by ships. They occupy the Muslim world by ships, you know. So, but the trouble with it, Muslim actually, it's interesting. The Muslim actually learned it build ships later, was not early. And it was actually Muawiyah is the one keep insisting. He was during, Sayyidina Umar. He wants to build the ships because the people come from the Mediterranean to attack. And Sayyidina Umar said, no, our people are not used to go in the water. They're only in the desert. So Muawiyah, Amr ibn al-As was in Egypt. And Egypt has ships because they have ships, that they used to travel with it. He himself he went over order of and told him, why don't you just develop the people who know how to build the ships? So when the time will come, we will have enough technology to build the ships. So when came Sayyidina Usman, he convinced him to build the ships. And we know there is battles, having Muslim have a lot of battles in the water on ships, It's fascinating. Flashed? Okay, Wafarat is a good point. Yes. So and the furnace, but you see, I want to see how the furnace flashed. That's how was a flash the furnace. Yeah, yeah. But the word tanur is the furnace. Wafar tanur. So what far was whatever inside the furnace. Anyway, you can explain it more. Yes, I'm not too sure. So, but how you translate it? Let's because to correct it. Then I have to add the water in the furnace flashed. Okay, let me write it and think about it anyway. Okay, that's good. Okay. Okay, we continue. Number 5, the power of forgiveness. We always ask forgive, ask Allah forgiveness. But what is really the impact is forgiveness in this case. Forgiveness, if you look in this, وَإِلَى عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودٍ. So Ad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them their brotherhood, the prophethood. قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُمْ مِنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرُهُ. Okay? All of the prophets said, oh my people, worship Allah, you have no God by him. إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا مُفْتَرُونَ, but you are inventing lies about him. يَا قَوْمِ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرٍ. I'm not asking a reward for what I'm telling you, the advice I'm giving you. إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. And by reward only come from the one who created me. Okay? Then comes in, وَيَا قَوْمِ استغفروا ربكم ثم توبوا إليه. O my people, seek forgiveness from your Lord and turn to him in repentance. If you do this, what is he going to do? يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا ويزيدكم قوة إلى قوتكم. That if you seek forgiveness and repent to him, he will command the sky to pour abundant rain upon you. That means you get a lot of prosperity, and then he will increase your strength. He will add to your strength. So there is a tangible blessings that comes out from asking forgiveness and repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One, it gives increased strength and give prosperity to society. Agriculture, food and so on for us, but which is the rain. So it is so important. So asking, forgiveness has to be also tied. This has now become almost a law. A spiritual and moral conduct shape the condition of the nation. And the condition of the nation comes in from istighfar and repentance. From seeking forgiveness. And now it's not individual. If the nation in trouble, they all have to do it. It's a collective activities. And this is the part which is really in the Quran. You rarely, I don't know if you ever find spoke about individual. It spoke about a group. Even when like you pray Al-Fatiha, you said, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ we, you know, worship you alone. Okay, I mean, you pray by yourself. Why are you committing me and everybody else to worship and declaring that we worship Allah and or we seek help only from you, seek help only from Allah when you're doing by yourself? Because there is no success by yourself. It has to be a collective. That's why when you do istighfar, you have to do istighfar. If the society has to prosper, it's not the individual prosper, it's the society have to prosper. And therefore everybody has to do it because the benefit goes to them, the punishment goes to them, even if you are righteous. So having righteous people in a corrupt society does not help them, in this regard. So people have to think about this. So that's why I always think about it something, and I probably raised this issue with you before. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every one of us will be judged alone. Is Allah is going to judge me only based on what I do, or based also in the society I live in? The example will be like in a school, if you get like in the last year, the professor will give a project for a group of students. The project, he will give 2 grades for everyone, a grade for the group activities, what they all accomplished, and part of the grade is an individual contribution. So is our judgment in the hereafter was between our activities and also what is the society activities. And therefore, if you are part of a group and all of them are going to fool around and don't do the project, well, you are going to get 0 like them, no matter how hard you work. So your interest to ensure that they work too, everybody carry his own weight. So in this regard, would we then directly, the Quran teaches that you have responsibility on the society too, unless you can stand in front of Allah subhanahu and said, I am nation by myself. I don't have anybody around you. Who is the only one who said this? Said Ibrahim. He said, I did everything. I couldn't do anything. I lifted them and I by myself now. In this regard. So that gives you directly that you are responsible for the people around you, so take away that selfishness and take that sense of social and, basically community responsibility. Now, another verse also here, and this is probably the clearest statement in the Quran that show that human civilization is mandate from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Building a society, advancing the prosperous society is part of your role as a Khalifa of Allah on earth. Allah subhanahu says في Surah, this also Juz, وإلى ثمود أخاهم صالحا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره هو أنشأكم من الأرض. And I underline this, that to Thamud, Allah sent their brother Salih, who said to them, oh my people, worship God. Actually, I shouldn't be God. Abudullah, worship Allah. I hate to translate Allah as God. You have no God other than Him. It was He who brought you into being from the earth and made you وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا. وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا, that made you develop and جاية من الاستعمار. When people go occupy a land, when you occupy a land, what do? You develop all of the natural resources of the land, they take the prosperity and use things in it. So here was وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا, and all of the scholars interpreted the word إِسْتَعْمَرَكُمْ فِيهَا, that means to develop it and advance it and build in it. Now, when it comes to this one, so your part of your work to develop, advance the society you live in, construct building, build the factories, all of this part of a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them, to people who created them in this earth. And then he said, فَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهِ وَتُوبُ إِلَيْهِ. Istighfar, you always have to use the istighfar or tawbah. that you ask forgiveness and do repentance because you get the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that regard. So in Rabbi Qaribun Mujib, and Allah subhanahu is near and ready to answer you. If you do this, then you find out what you have and how you develop the earth. If we are a group here, came in an island, and we know that we have to develop. Allah amara ista'marakum fiha. You are responsible now. So what we have to do? We have to study agriculture. We have to know people who understand the agriculture. We have to know people architecture and infrastructure. We have to know people who have to social institution. We have governance. We have knowledge and education. When we have kids, we have art, that we have to develop to enjoy it. And we have technology and science and so on. All of it is just one word. But it directly tell you that you as a trustee on the earth, as a builder and developer of this earth, and maintain it and protecting it, not to abuse it environmentally, no, to take and protect it and develop it in this regard. This one I'm going to skip quickly on it because you guys heard me this morning on it. And this is the part when I said that, the word Sayha came regarding the destruction of two people, the people of Thamud, and also the people of, people of Madian, which is Shu'aib. Thamud has the Prophet Salih with them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say we destroyed the Sayha. But in the surah, Allah described also what happened to them. First one, he came for Thamud, وَأَخَذَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا الصَّيْحَ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. That means when the Sayha, Allah sees the wrong zone with this, with the Sayha, they lay basically lifeless in their home. They collapsed in their home. And because what happened, I told you, when the high dB, which are above 200, it collapses the body from inside. So you fall down, your body will be there, but all of the inner organ is basically burst. And that is the level of Sayha in it. And this happened also when Allah subhanahu say in that we lifted their building as a sign, as archaeological sign for people to know the impact of it. So it is so interesting, as I told you, I said, if the level above 200, 120 decibel, then you're getting, your ear hurts. But at 150, your eardrum burst. That's why people, I don't know, these stupid people who, stupid, I shouldn't use the word stupid anyway, you go to this, what they call it, a metal band or something, the sound is so high, how can your ear, it become annoying to the ear. But if they reach 150 decibel, nobody will listen to anything because their eardrum will be burst. But if the level is higher than 200 decibel, then you get the killing. So people now do you use it? Is people working on this? Yeah, they use it. They use this, acoustic devices for crowd control. Basically bring that sound, and then people will disperse because it hurt them. And disperse. Obviously, we use also acoustics for ultrasonics and so on. We use it for medical. People use it also for drilling, to break the rocks and so on. They use this. So it is actually a technology built in. And why, you can ask, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to tell us this? Have to tell us he destroyed the Sayha? If it has no benefit, if all what we have to do, he could destroy them. Okay. But given us the mechanism for it, it's supposed to help you to say, take a hint and see how you can study this subject. Then this is the verse that also I mentioned this morning. And this is a questioning about the eternity of hell, reflective things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say there is two groups of people. Okay, there is people who are, basically are going to hell, and there is people who are going to go to heaven. Okay. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those people who are, who are reached, the people is going now to go to hell. فَفِي النَّارِ لَهُمْ فِيهَا شَهِقٌ زَفِيرٌ وَشَهِقٌ. And they go in the fire, sighing and sobbing. خالدين فيها. Here is a term, خالد. خالدين فيها. خالدين فيها will remain forever. Khalid means forever or eternal. That's what we have to do. As long as the heavens and the earth endure, unless your Lord wills otherwise, surely your Lord does whatever he wills. So they are in it all the time as long as the heaven and the earth is still there. Okay? Then does this mean that if the heaven and the earth will vanish one day, then there will be no hell? And the same thing comes in for وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ سُعِدُوا, and those people now who are blessed will be in paradise also خالدين فيها, the same term, خالدين فيها, that in it for, abided forever. As long as the heavens and the earth endure, unless Allah wills otherwise. Is that, if we stop at this point, you said, oh, which is similar to the same saying. That means there's a question about the eternity. Yes, Khalidin, I mean long time, but it's not infinite. And here also, then Allah add this, عطاء غير مجذوذ, that a gift never to be cut off. So although the same verse, but Allah gave the qualification that as far as the heavens is concerned, there will be no ending for it because it's Allah reward for them, and this reward will never end, will never be cut off. Then you come to the hell then, because that condition Allah left it open. That means would then hell end at one point for people, and would it end for all of them, or will end for some and some not, depending on how bad they were, because there is difference between a disbeliever who is passive, he disbelieves and sitting by himself and maybe even help the Muslims, and there is a disbeliever who is aggressive and doing justice and so on. There has to be, Allah subhanahu, I'm sure for the justice will allow a difference between them in this regard. So here comes in, to this interpretation. Obviously, we raise this issue, but it was not the only people who raised this issue. It raised it during the time of the Prophet, and this is why both Ibn Abbas and Mas'ud have made a statement in it. Ibn Mas'ud, he said that the time will come. I left for you here the hadith, what Ibn Mas'ud said. He said that the time will come when the hell destroys its door, and there will be no one in it. And this is after they stayed in it for a long time. So he said that in the end of the day, nobody will be Allah. There will consume the bodies. If some people, Allah will take them and put them in heaven, who knows? But he's saying that, it basically will come at one time with nobody. Now, this is Ibn Mas'ud was saying this. Ibn Abbas will also infer to this. He says, abiding therein as long as heavens and earth endure means they will neither die nor leave for a long time as long as the heaven and the earth remains. While the exception, unless your Lord wills otherwise, is taken as a divine reservation tied to Allah's ultimate command over the fire to consume them. That means when you come to Ibn Mas'ud says that there will be nobody there. Oh, sorry, and then the other one, he said the fire will eat them. So that means that there will be an end for their suffering. So, but the important part now, this one is all part of the basically unseen. If you believe to unseen, we cannot, nobody knows it except with the knowledge of Allah subhanahu have revealed to us. But the important part in it, that as far if you go to heaven, inshallah, all of us will be, inshallah, then in that case will be forever. There is no ending for it. As far as the hell is concerned, it could be there is ending to some people in it, the fire will consume them. And that solves an issue, because sometimes people come and say, would you really, people who like, okay, this believer, we know it's according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's going to go to hell, but all of it forever, was whatever he was, even he was this believer for a few years and And this Allah, so Allah subhanahu leave this door open. You cannot know how long it is. If a person is really was so good and so on, but just if he was confused, I don't think Allah will put him to hell, sorry. Because as long as a person is seeking knowledge and is sincere in seeking knowledge, Allah subhanahu will lead him to the truth. And even if he, reaches the truth by the time he die, Allah subhanahu is all forgiven. But the question is for people who are, transgressing. And those people, there must be punishment different. As much as there is heaven, there in the heaven, there is people at different.
They say we will stay in hell for a day or two, and then Allah says, like, bring the Burhan. Where is it?
Yeah.
So this is real contradiction.
So Muslim, well, no, wait a minute. No, there's not contradiction what I'm saying here. A contradiction that you claim you, not you, okay? But since you raised the issue, it's like Muslims say, oh, all what it is, yeah, I can do adultery, I can do this and this. Oh, I'll go a couple of days in hell and so on. And then the proof, bring the proof. But we're not talking about this one. We're talking about people whom Allah condemned to hell. And remember, it is not that you're going to take them out to heaven. He said, An-nar will consume them. Because remember, the ayah also comes and says, we wish to be a dust. When they wish to be a dust. They will take punishment and they become a dust. Allah knows best. All what I'm saying, it is this ayah, these two ayahs sometimes create an issue in the mind, but you have to remember, don't worry about how eternal hell is. It is 1,000 years or one day. It doesn't matter. You cannot tolerate it. But focus in how to be in heaven, because that is the part that guaranteed it's going to be forever. Because people sometimes, say, oh, it's going to be, okay, if it's going to a few days, that means what? How you know a day? A day is 1,000 year anyway. So how can you tolerate this? So sometimes people, it becoming this. Now this verse actually, the second verse in Surah Hud, it's a very, very difficult verse to all Muslims today, and maybe in the past too. Allah subhanahu says, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارُ وَمَا لَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ مِنْ أَوْلِيَاءَ ثُمَّ لَا تُنصَرُونَ. And don't incline toward those who have done injustice, who done ظلم, injustice. فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارُ, so the fire will touch you and you have no protector other than Allah, then you will not be held. The question is becoming this, tarkin, rukn. Tarkinun, Allah, this incline, it doesn't mean it's not support, because Allah don't support them. No, it's being passive. If your passivity, when you see injustice happen, is a support of the injustice. So in that regard, it is actually because that comes in, if you see an injustice, and you said, okay, I'm by myself, I cannot do anything. No, you are responsible. You are inclining to it, because as long as you allow them to go process, they can transgress further and further and further. And so any moral complicity, actually is counted as a participation in the crime. So when you look to the injustice that happen in the world today and see all of these Muslim nations standing and watching, you remember when we talk about Surah Al-Buruj and we speak about the people in the Ukhdud? Did Allah condemn in the surah and curse in the surah the people who's throwing the people in the fire? No. Obviously, they curse, but this doesn't require a verse. Allah condemned those who are watching, who are sitting around and watching. They are the one who Allah cursed. So sitting around, and here is, because that is itself is a way of support. If you're sitting, you see the injustice happening, and you are not doing anything, then what is this? Last verse, it actually comes at the end of Hud and in Surah Yusuf. You find out in the Quran use stories, stories of prophets, stories of other nations, and so on. And why? Why? Because this is the way you can, you basically, instead of a command, it gives you this moral imagination also as you read the story about what is happening to it, and it engages you both emotionally and intellectually. And Allah uses them, as He said for Surah Hud, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ بِأَنبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتْ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. We are relating to the story of the messenger to strengthen your heart. So there is many prophets and messengers. Allah subhanahu never mentioned their stories. Why Allah picked these stories that He mentioned in the Quran? 25 prophets or something. Because these stories will be repeated all the time. If you see the transgression of the people of Hud or Salih or Samud, or even Lut and so on, it is something happen all the time. And therefore, you have to heed the lesson from these stories and take out and recognize what is happening and how Allah subhanahu protect really the messenger or the prophets and the righteous people and destroy the end of those, the unjust people. So that is always the story, the purpose of the story. The purpose of the story is not entertainment, but to draw lesson and recognize, wait a minute, is our society is driven toward the crime those people are committing? And if they are doing this, if you look to like, Shu'aib Ahl Madian, what do you think he was leading or was asking them to do? To be just in the scale. When you weigh, when you sell people, sell them what they deserve, in it. And so that's a social problem, it's a marketing issue, it's a business issue. Don't cheat people in business. And Allah condemned them for this also. Another one, it is more enjoyable, particular for kids. That's why I said if you want to teach the Quran, the kids, start with the stories. Because and try to draw lessons from it. By the way, I tell you guys, still my challenge to you available. It is about 10 years ago or more than that. I remember I took the story of Al-Baqarah, because the first story is the story of the Baqarah, Surah Al-Baqarah. And I was challenging my grandkids that we should come with 10 lessons from it, 10 practical lessons from the story of the Baqarah. And it's about few verses. And that time they came with 7. So I came to you guys and the other, when we were having this, I said, can you come with the 3? Because I promised to give them, lessons I'll give them award if they make 10. So the question is, you guys never came with the 3, by the way. You kept repeating what the kids have come up with, but you never come with the 3. So the challenge for you, if you're sitting to study Quran with your kids, just read the story of the Baqarah and tell them, can we come with 10 practical lessons, what we learn from it, to improve, because the story is supposed to do this. You're supposed to draw moral lessons from it. But the other one is this one. In Surah Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نحن قص عليك أحسن القصص. Not just the قصة Yusuf, أحسن القصص, the best of the stories, by revealing مما أوحينا إليك هذا كنت من قبل من الآخرين, by revealing to you in the Quran, though before you're not aware of it. So the question directly of this, and I think I gave this before to the kids in the Fajr Club. I said, Allah subhanahu tell that this is the best story. Surah Yusuf is the best story. So that means it's in it, there must be all of the key element to develop or to write the best story. Why don't pick at it and derive from read this surah, derive the best element for a good story, and then you write a story. You write a story about it. Actually, there are only a couple of kids who did that, who wrote a story. But it's important because your kid might be a kid very, has a lot of good writing capabilities, has a lot of imagination, and they can write stories. But if you help them, okay, let us read this, derive the lessons, and what you're going to do, you are going to probably search Google or ChatGPT and said, okay, give me the element of the best story, the 10 element of the best story, and then try to tie them to the element that, in the story of Prophet Yusuf to see if it fits what they have derived, and ask your kid to write another story using this element to do it. So,
they know all the elements. They're taught by them.
Is it about good stories? Okay. Okay, then here is the element anyway. So so I should leave it for you here. So we can just do it as a simple exercise. Okay, you need a central hero for the story. Who is the central hero here? It's Yusuf, obviously, the main character. You need a powerful antagonist. Who's a powerful antagonist? The brothers and the wife of the Aziz, and when now, who is now basically an inciting event, a key event that happened that started the story? The dream, the dream, and the deep conflict, the conflict obviously with the family, with the household of the Aziz. A narrative, an arc that connects them, the journey from the dream to the fulfillment of the dream. That's how you connect the two. A recurring hook, a scene that always have something that suddenly happen, a lot of events. What is the shirt? They get the shirt to the father, the shirt for the Aziz wife, the shirt, for the father again, and so on. So there's something that shows up, a picture, shows up in the movie. A transformation, of the protagonist. Yusuf grew up from a vulnerable child to a, enslaved, used to prisoner, to finally to a trusted minister. A dramatic, visual scenes, the brother plotting how to put him, the Aziz cutting the hand, and so on. So you see all of these things comes in, and the climatic resolution, which is a dream, is fulfilled. So and if you look at this, it's a human actually history for Sayyidina Yusuf. Started from a cases when it's so difficult to suddenly, if they didn't throw him in the well, then he would not become a minister of Egypt. So yes, suffering will happen, important at the end of what's good. So things happen to you during the life are difficult, but the important part to keep looking always for as long as you are doing the right things too. You are a righteous person in this. Sure.
In that it says, it was all Allah's plan. Then also in the verse says, it's Shaitan who was making the brother do this. And this is all Allah's plan. So how do we blame Shaitan here? Because this was all Allah's plan for the beginning, that this is going to happen to Islam. You have to go all through the stages to become that minister.
Okay. There is, they believe, obviously people always blame somebody else, to do it. But I thought you said they blame the Shaitan. But the issue that related, I thought you are going to ask me about when the guy was in a prison with him and said the Shaitan, is the one, let me forget it. Forget. Obviously, the kids, the brothers who did the lot, the Shaitan has nothing to do with them. They are corrupted mind. That's what they did it. So that's not, their blame of Shaitan is a silly one. But the other one is really comes in, and that's why they come and say, Allah subhanahu can even use the Shaitan also to deliver, to basically to fulfill his deeds. As Allah can use the people, can use the environment, can use this, can also use the Shaitan. Is just a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this regard. But the Shaitan have no influence by itself.
But have been fit earlier, would not have got the position, right?
If he would if he was released early and probably left, would not have the dream and all this.
He was like more inclined to the help from the king.
Yeah.
So that was one of.
Yeah, that's all trying to interpret why it was delayed. But you don't add, frankly, in the Quran, if Allah didn't attribute bad things to anybody, we shouldn't attribute. Because what people say, oh, he didn't say, he said he didn't rely on Allah and relied on the king. I mean, as a prophet, he cannot do this, And even if you're using the means, like you go and use a means to help you, doesn't mean you don't rely on Allah, because relying on Allah is not the act of the limbs or the mouth, it's act of the heart. I go to the doctor to treat me, and I take the medicine, but I know in my heart, if that work, it work because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the doctor make the right diagnosis because of Allah, but if that means I would go to him, that means I do mushrik with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. It's almost like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam hired everybody to help him and put the secret plan to go from Mecca to Medina, is he not relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت، وعافنا فيمن عافيت، وتولنا فيمن توليت، وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت، وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت، فإنك يا ربنا تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا، وانفعنا بما علمتنا، وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك، وبطاعتك عن معصيتك، وبفضلك عمن سواك. اللهم بفضلك ورحمتك أعلي كلمة الحق والدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us, shower us with your blessings, increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, purify our hearts, strengthen our faith, increase our knowledge, and make us benefit from what you have taught us. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves garden from heaven and grant them the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. Oh Allah, grant to all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them, and make them righteous. Oh Allah, grant us the power and the ability that we may be grateful for the favors you have bestowed upon us and our parent, and that we may do righteous deeds that are pleasing to you. Oh Allah, we seek from you all of the good, whether we know it or we don't. And we seek your refuge from all evil, whether we know it or we don't. Oh Allah, we seek refuge in you from incapacity, from laziness, from fear, from greed, from poverty, and from the torment of the grave. Oh Allah, we have many of our brethren who are living under oppression and injustice. Oh Allah, heal their trauma, protect their helpless, and grant them lasting peace and prosperities. Oh Allah, we ask with every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.